The evening had settled quietly over the city when Barış Arduç finished his work and stepped outside. He stood beside his car for a moment, looking at the lights in the distance. The day had been long, but something about the evening felt strangely peaceful. His phone vibrated. He looked at the screen. It was a message from Elçin Sangu. For a few seconds, Barış simply stared at her name. They had not spoken properly in a long time. Life had carried them through different schedules, different responsibilities, and different chapters. They had shared beautiful memories once, but time had gradually created distance between them. Still, some memories had never disappeared. Barış opened the message. "Are you free tomorrow?" He smiled. "I think I can make time." "Why?" Her answer arrived a few moments later. "I'd like to talk." That was all. No explanation. No details. Just a simple request. Yet Barış felt something familiar return. The following afternoon, they met at a quiet cafe. Barış arrived first and chose a table near the window. He looked outside while waiting. A few minutes later, Elçin walked through the door. Their eyes met. She smiled. He stood. "Hi." "Hi." They greeted each other warmly before sitting down. For a while, they talked about ordinary things. Work. Life. Travel. Recent projects. The years that had passed. But both knew that the meeting was about more than catching up. Eventually, Elçin became quiet. Barış noticed. "You wanted to talk about something?" She nodded. "I've been thinking about the past." He waited. "About the things we remember?" "Yes." She looked toward the window. "Sometimes I wonder how certain memories can remain so clear, even after so much time." Barış smiled softly. "Some memories are like that. Do you still remember?" He looked at her. "More than you probably think." Elçin smiled. "What do you remember?" He laughed. "That's a dangerous question." "Why?" "Because if I start, we'll be here all evening." She laughed. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Their conversation became easier. They remembered small moments from years earlier. Long conversations. Quiet walks. Shared laughter. Simple days that had seemed ordinary at the time. Elçin smiled. "We never knew those moments would become memories." "No one does." She looked at him. "That's what I've been thinking about." "What?" "Maybe we're always creating memories without realizing it." Barış nodded. "Probably." A comfortable silence followed. Then Elçin asked quietly, "Do you think some people are impossible to forget?" Barış thought for a moment. "Yes." "Why?" "Because forgetting someone isn't always about time." She waited. "Sometimes it's about what they meant to you." Elçin looked down. Her expression softened. "I think that's true." The waiter brought their coffee. Neither rushed to continue. They simply sat there, letting the conversation breathe. After a while, Barış asked, "Why now?" Elçin looked at him. "Why did you want to talk about the past now?" She smiled faintly. "Because I realized that some memories don't disappear just because life moves forward." He nodded. "And maybe they shouldn't." "Exactly." She took a slow breath. "I don't want to go backward." Barış smiled. "Neither do I. I just don't want to pretend that what happened didn't matter." It mattered. The answer came naturally. Elçin looked at him. "How do you know?" "Because I remember." Those words stayed between them. There was no need for a long explanation. They both understood. The past was not something they needed to escape. It was simply a part of their story. After leaving the cafe, they decided to walk. The evening air was cool. The streets were filled with soft lights and quiet conversations. They walked side by side. Elçin smiled. "This feels familiar." "It does." "But different." Barış looked at her. "Different how?" "Before, we didn't know how quickly everything could change. And now?" Now we know. They continued walking. At a small park, they stopped. Elsin sat on a bench. Bari sat beside her. For a few minutes, they watched people passing by. Then Elsin said, I used to think that if something ended, it was supposed to stay ended. Bari's looked at her. Do you still believe that? She shook her head. No. Why? Because sometimes people don't really stop caring. They just stop talking. Bari smiled. That's true. She looked at him. Maybe that's what happened to us. He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, maybe. The word was quiet, but meaningful. Elsin smiled. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had stayed closer? Bari's looked toward the city. Sometimes. Do you regret the distance? He considered the question. I regret missing some moments. She nodded. But not everything? No. Why? Because the years changed us. She smiled. And maybe that's a good thing. It can be. They sat quietly again. The evening became darker. The city lights seemed brighter. Elsin eventually stood. We should go. Bari's nodded. They walked toward their cars. Before saying goodbye, Elsin turned toward him. Thank you. For what? For listening. Bari smiled. Anytime. She hesitated. Would you like to meet again? He smiled. Yes. Her expression brightened. Good. When? Let me choose. All right. She laughed. You trust me? I think I do. Then it's settled. They said goodbye. Elsin walked toward her car. Bari's watched her for a moment before turning away. His phone vibrated again. A message from her. Don't forget. You promised to trust me. He smiled. I won't. That evening, both of them thought about the same thing. The past had returned quietly. Not with dramatic promises. Not with impossible expectations. It had returned through a conversation. A smile. A memory. A simple invitation to meet again. Perhaps that was why the feeling was so powerful. They were not trying to recreate the people they once were. They were meeting as the people they had become. And somewhere between the memories they shared and the future they had not yet imagined, something began to change. The love they had never forgotten was no longer simply a memory. It was becoming a question. Could something that once mattered deeply find a place in the present? Neither knew the answer. But for the first time in years, they were willing to find out. And sometimes, the most beautiful stories begin with nothing more than two people deciding to remember what they once meant to each other. The next morning, Bari's woke with the previous evening still fresh in his mind. He remembered the conversation, the quiet walk, and the way Elsin had looked at him when she asked whether some people were impossible to forget. He had not given her a complete answer. Perhaps because he was still trying to understand his own feelings. His phone vibrated. A message from Elsin appeared. I know I said I would choose the place, but I have a better idea. Bari smiled. He replied. Now I'm curious. Her answer came quickly. Good. Tomorrow afternoon. Be ready. He laughed. That's all the information I'm getting? For now. The following afternoon, Bari's arrived at the place Elsin had chosen. It was a quiet garden outside the busiest part of the city. There were trees, small walking paths, and a peaceful view that made the world feel far away. Elsin was waiting near the entrance. When she saw him, she smiled. You came. You invited me. I wasn't sure you would. Why wouldn't I? She shrugged. Maybe you would decide I was becoming too mysterious. He laughed. I already knew that. She smiled. Then come on. They walked through the garden together. For several minutes, neither spoke. The silence felt natural. Eventually, Elsin stopped beside a small pond. Do you remember this? Bari's looked around. He smiled. I do. Years earlier, they had visited the same place with friends. It had been an ordinary afternoon. At the time, neither had realized how important that memory would become. Elsin looked at him. I came here last week. Alone. Yes. Why? I wanted to see whether it still felt the same. And? She smiled. It did. Baris looked at the water. Some places don't change. People do. He looked at her. Sometimes. They continued walking. Elsin had brought a small bag with her. After a while, she sat on a bench and opened it. Inside was an old notebook. Baris looked surprised. What is that? Something I found recently. She opened it carefully. Inside were a few handwritten notes. Baris recognized some of the words immediately. You kept this? Elsin smiled. I didn't even remember having it. He looked at the pages. There were small reminders from years earlier. Places they had talked about visiting. Books they had discussed. Ideas they had shared. One note made them both laugh. Baris read it aloud. We should take a break and spend a whole day doing absolutely nothing. Elsin laughed. We never did that. No. Maybe we should now. He smiled. Maybe. She closed the notebook. I think that's what I realized. What? We spent so much time planning the future that we forgot to enjoy the present. Baris nodded. That's easy to do. They sat together for a while. The afternoon sunlight moved slowly through the trees. Elsin looked at him. Do you think we were happy back then? Baris thought carefully. Yes. Even though we didn't know it? Especially because we didn't know it. She smiled. That's strange. Life is strange. They laughed. Then the conversation became more serious. Elsin asked, do you think love can survive distance? Baris looked at her. Sometimes. What makes it survive? Maybe it isn't the distance that matters. What is? The meaning of the connection. She was quiet. And if the connection was real, then time doesn't necessarily erase it. Elsin looked toward the pond. I think that's what I wanted to know. Baris smiled. And now you know? She looked at him. I think I do. They continued their walk. Near the end of the garden, they found a small cafe. They ordered tea and sat outside. The conversation became lighter again. They talked about food, travel, books, and places they wanted to see. Elsin laughed when Baris admitted that he had never learned to prepare one of his favorite dishes. You still can't cook it? No. After all these years? I've had other priorities. She smiled. Then one day I'll teach you. Baris raised an eyebrow. Is that a promise? Maybe. I'll remember that. The afternoon slowly became evening. Neither noticed how quickly the hours had passed. When they finally stood to leave, Elsin looked at him. Today was exactly what I needed. Me too. They walked back toward the entrance. At the gate, Elsin stopped. I have one more question. Baris smiled. Go ahead. If you could go back to one day from the past, which day would you choose? He thought for a moment. One ordinary day. Why not an important one? Because important days are easy to remember. She smiled. And ordinary days? They're the ones we don't appreciate until they're gone. Elsin nodded slowly. I would choose the same. They stood quietly. Then Baris asked, what would you change? She looked at him. Nothing. Nothing. No. She smiled. Because changing it would mean changing everything that came after. He understood. The past had shaped who they were. Even the distance. Even the missed opportunities. Even the years when they had barely spoken. All of it had brought them to this moment. Elsin took a breath. Maybe we don't need another chance to change the past. Baris looked at her. Maybe we need a chance to create something new. She smiled. Exactly. They said goodbye. This time, there was no uncertainty. They both knew they would meet again. As Boris drove home, he realized that something inside him had become calmer. He was no longer wondering whether the past still mattered. It clearly did. But he was beginning to understand that remembering someone did not mean living in yesterday. It meant carrying the best parts of that connection into today. Across the city, Elsin placed the old notebook on her desk. She opened it once more. The handwriting was familiar. The dreams were younger. The hopes were simpler. She smiled. Then she closed the notebook. She picked up her phone and typed a message. Next time, let's do that ordinary day we never had. Boris read the message a few minutes later. He smiled. I'd like that. Elsin replied. Then it's a plan. And just like that, their next meeting was decided. Not a grand event. Not something designed to impress anyone. Just a simple day. A day where they could laugh, talk,